Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a Public Works podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today I got a real treat for you. His name is Philip Nitollama, and he is the city traffic engineer at the city of Riverside in beautiful California. Philip, say what's up to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Good to meet you, and thank you to Joseph and the Public Works podcast for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. So I'm excited.
For sure, for sure. So of course, I crept your LinkedIn and look, try to find your whole life ahead of this podcast. But I love one thing in your bio, the safe routes to school coordinator. You told me that you get to ride your bike ride with your child to school on Fridays. Dude, that's one of the coolest things out. Tell us about the safe routes to school coordinator and how fun of a job that is.
Yeah, so I've worked for two different cities where I've established the safe routes to school programs. What that means is I've coordinated with each school and each school district. We visited them, we talked to the principals, we talked to the PTA, Parent Teacher Association. Yeah. We took some multimodal counts, and then we created a plan. So that plan is how to get people to walk and bike to school and not use their cars. There's a report, and then there's an action plan. So if a parent comes up to a principal and says, how do I get to school without using my car? They give them a map, and it shows them which direction to go, where there's sidewalks and crosswalks, and it shows them where the bike lanes are. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what the Safe Route to School program is. And then we also try to find that champion in the school that will really drive that program home. And we work in unison with them to continue the program. So it's something I've been working on for two different cities now, and it's been going great. So
no, that's cool. You're doing the Lord's work with that, because it's every morning around between 7:30, 8:30, there's always so many more cars on the road. You can tell they're just taking their kids to school, but these schools are pretty much proximal to where we live at, and why can't there be a better way? So I appreciate you doing that.
No, right. The real heroes though are the crossing guards. They really control the traffic and hold up the vehicle so the kids can cross. They do a lot of work, and some of them know the kids on a first name basis. Kind of motherly towards them almost. So it's really good.
Yeah, takes a village for sure. So you're the city traffic engineer or the city of Riverside. Of course, it's a vague title. We kind of know what an engineer is. We kind of know what traffic in a city is. But give us the 30,000-foot view of what you do as a city traffic engineer for the city of Riverside.
Sure, no problem. They say that if you have a driver's license, you're a traffic engineer already, right? So there's a lot of traffic engineers out there. It seems like what we do is really simple, but on a very surface level, we do traffic engineering, transportation planning, traffic signal operations, work with the schools. We also work with civil engineers when it comes to pavement and striping. We do a lot of community work since I work in a public sector position. There's a lot of communications with the council members, with a lot of the residents. We take a lot of the calls and try to solve that puzzle and really help them. And then on the flip side of that, there's the legality of the situations. When there's a collision, we get involved in legal cases where we have to provide testimony, or we have to provide information to defend the city for what we did and why we did it. Really? But that's really it in a nutshell. A lot of those things are part of the public sector and public works. So
okay, it's interesting. You got your suit, you got your shirt and tie on right now. You're looking good, looking real professional. How often does Philip have to go downtown to that courthouse? Like, have you ever participated in a deposition or a subpoena to where you got to put on that power suit and and play Law and Order?
Oh man, probably more times than I wanted to.
Really?
So
give us a story. I mean, you probably can't say too much, but give us kind of how it works. What crosses your desk, what it's like when you show up there, what the lawyers are trying to get you to do.
Sure, no problem. So what happens is there's a traffic collision. between maybe two vehicles or a bicyclist and a vehicle. The plaintiff or the person that got hurt, they think that they caused the collision because of something the city did. You know, maybe we missed a sign, the traffic signal was malfunctioning, or there was a sight distance issue. You know, there was a tree that was blocking their visibility, and they blamed the city. So they sue the city. They hire a lawyer, they sue the city, they submit a claim for X amount of dollars. You know, that I want $1 million because I got $10 million because I got hurt. Whatever the amount is. Now the lawyers, you know, the lawyers for the plaintiff, the one that's suing the city, they want to interview who's responsible for this intersection. And when it comes to traffic, it usually leads to my desk. Yeah. And so I've probably provided, I don't know, I've lost count, but I would say between 10 to 15 depositions already to defend the city. And in those depositions, the opposing attorney, you know, he's trying to make me look bad, trying to make the city look bad. They will scrutinize every little thing about you. You know, what gives you the authority to determine where the signs go, and what kind of training did you take to get that authority? What kind of schooling did you take to get that authority? And then did you maintain that signal? Did you maintain the landscaping and the signage? So they're trying to find something that you did wrong that would cause you to pay or cause the city to pay. So it's not the nicest feeling. You know, you're getting scrutinized, you're getting interviewed, but they have an agenda and they're trying to look out for their client and win money for their client. And that attorney also gets a percentage of that court case. So they're financially invested, you know. The lucky thing for Public Works, we have our own city attorneys that defend the city in unison. So I'm not left out on an island to defend the city by myself. They're right there helping me along the way. We're producing evidence, we're complying, we're participating, we provide maintenance records. So usually we're able to successfully defend the city and show that we did everything right and by the book.
And how often do you just look at the judge and go, come on, man, we're back here again. They're trying to do it again, a slip and fall, and they're trying to get $50 trillion out of a city that's, you know, underfunded, you know, for starters.
Correct. Usually we try to avoid going to trial at all costs. You know, so we participate, we give all the documentations, we do all the testimony before we get to trial. By the time it gets to trial, we feel that it could be biased because there's some jurors that may feel a certain way, you know, and sometimes the plaintiffs, they'll cry during their testimony. There's that emotional impact that's involved. And so everyone's human, so the jurors can be swayed one way or the other. So we try our best to avoid trial at all costs. So.
Gotcha. So how often does your wife roll her eyes when you're on vacation with her and you're pointing out that's a lawsuit waiting to happen?
Oh man, she would have an entire hour talking to you about that. We go on vacations and I'm a traffic engineer. I like to look at traffic signs and traffic striping, right? So I'm on vacation, I'm taking photos of these bike signs. That's a really cool bike sign, or that's a really cool traffic sign. I haven't seen that one yet, you know? And she goes, do you want to take a picture of me every once in a while? your phone is full of photos of traffic signage and striping, you know? And you're right. I also will call out, oh, that crosswalk doesn't have a curb ramp, so someone's gonna slip and fall and trip over the curb, you know? And she goes, let's talk about our plans for dinner instead of looking out for Public Works projects. But, you know, I can't help it. That's what I do at work. So it kind of transfers over sometimes when we go on vacation. So
I'm sure. So give us your career path. You know, you didn't wake up being a city traffic engineer. So give us your career path from high school all the way up until today.
Yeah, so I went to Huntington Beach High School. It's a funny story. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I walked into the career counseling office and I asked her, what should I do? She looked at me, she goes, what are you good at? And I said, I'm good at math. So that's what I told her. She said, "You should be an engineer." And I walked out. That was it. I go, "Engineer sounds good." It was literally a minute's worth of talking, and that was it. And then, I went to college. I was trying to be a mechanical engineer. Unfortunately, there is one specific class that I could not pass. Well, I ended up passing it, but it was very difficult. It was called thermodynamics.
Oh.
And I tried really hard in that class, and I think I barely passed. I got a C. And so they said, I'm not gonna. There was thermodynamics 2 and 3, and it just kept going up. And this is not for me. So I switched to another engineering path, which is civil engineering. I graduated with civil engineering from the University of California, Irvine. It was a really good school. And I started off while I was in college. I was interning at Urban Crossroads, which is a transportation company. They do traffic studies. So by the time I graduated, I had 2 years worth of internship experience in transportation planning. So I just carried that through my career. I became a transportation planner at the beginning. After bouncing around at 2 consulting firms, I ended up at a public sector job, which is the city of Mission Viejo. And it was really funny during the interview. It was the end of the day, and my old supervisor, she was she made a joke at the beginning of the interview, so I felt the vibe was okay. This is not very serious. Let's start throwing some jokes around. I threw some jokes around. She was laughing really hard, and she ended up hiring me, and I ended up in public works. After she hired me, she said, "You weren't the best candidate I had, but because you made me laugh in the interview, I want to work with someone that I can laugh with." And so she goes, I basically hired you because of your comedic character." That's what she told me. So I was happy about that. And, I've been in public works in the public sector ever since. After Mission Viejo, I transitioned to the city of Riverside, and that's where I'm at now. Along the way, I picked up a traffic engineering license. I thought that was good to have, being the city traffic engineer. And then as I transitioned to Riverside, we do a lot of pavement work and a lot of civil work. So I picked up my civil engineering degree as well. And then since I have a lot of leadership roles in the city, I picked up my master's in public administration also. That one
nice.
From California State University, Long Beach. So I'm kind of homegrown in Southern California, kind of bounced around in Orange County, Riverside County, and even LA County. So that's my career in a nutshell. I'm kind of nerdy, I would say. I was trying to hide that I'm not a nerd, but being an engineer, you get really nerdy,
Yeah, you went back to school to get whether a certification or a higher education degree 3 times, man. That says a lot. Right. But it also says that you're passionate and care about what you do, for sure. It's one thing to be the city traffic engineer, but also to be a division manager. What are some of the benefits, challenges, pluses, minuses? Like, why couldn't you just keep your head down and continue to be an engineer? What made you want to say, "Hey, I want to manage people"?
Yeah, no, you're correct. So being a manager, a division manager, has a lot of responsibility. I think I'll compare it to being the middle child of a family. When you're the middle child, you learn how to adapt. You learn how to lead and follow, right? You lead your younger sibling, but you'll follow your older sibling. So same thing with a division manager. There's the department heads that we have to follow, whatever the department objectives are. And then we also have to lead the subordinates in your division, the new hires, the interns, the technicians. They follow your lead. So that's the adaptability of a division manager. You have to learn how to lead and follow. The other thing, when you're leading people, as a division manager, sometimes I'm stepping away from being an engineer. I'm putting on a different hat to lead people. And that comes with its own challenges. My first day in the city of Riverside, I gotta tell you this story. I got hit with one employee said, "I have a workman's comp issue. I need to take care of it right now." This is the first day of work. second employees on the second half of the day, she said, I need a reasonable accommodation to change my full-time status to part-time. And so I was hit with all this personnel stuff right off the bat. And I was like,
first day, yeah.
Coming in here to be an engineer and do engineering work. So,
Yeah,
you know, to be a division manager, I'm gonna say roughly 40% of my work is personnel stuff.
wow.
Who's getting hired, who has to be put on probation, you know, and then who has to take time off. You got to balance schedules, and then who really wants to get promoted, you know, who's really deserving, and what do they need to get there. I have to lead them. And then you know, last year I had an employee that was having trouble at home, and she had to find a home to live. So we had you know, housing and shelter services for the city. I had to make that connection for an employee.
Wow.
You know, I had to go above and beyond what we normally do. This is not something that you would do at work, but you know, you care about your employees. You don't want them to be homeless. That's not what you want, you know. But they never taught me that in school. that was not part of the curriculum, you know. I had to figure that one out. So
yeah, I was gonna ask, like, all those certifications you got didn't prepare you for first day and those types of issues.
no, not at all.
For sure, for sure. Let's talk skill sets next. You kind of talked about the adaptability, being the middle child, division manager, but city traffic engineer. If somebody younger asked you, said, Philip, what will be the number one skill set I should pick up to be successful at what you currently do? What would that skill set be?
Oh, the number one thing. Well, the technical knowledge has to be there. There's going to be moments when, well, not moments, all the time, actually. If you're the city traffic engineer, they're going to look for your expertise in traffic. So what sign should I install? What striping? You have to be able to point to a standard plan, be able to point to a previously approved project and defend it. You know, there's a lot of conflicting objectives. So one thing I'll say is, we work with the California Department of Transportation a lot, so Caltrans. So the freeways cross a lot of arterial roadways.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these off ramps or signals that transfer traffic from the freeway to the surface street. So that's what Caltrans does. Their main objective is get cars off the main line of the freeway and onto the surface street. So their main line is continuously flowing. Well, I'm the city. I have the opposite conflicting objective. I want to get cars off the surface street and onto so that my surface streets are flowing.
Yeah.
So two conflicting objectives. You know, you have to be able to discuss and defend that objective when you're dealing with the public. But you know, the one thing that the engineers don't really utilize a lot, I think that is a skill set that's required, is communication. In the engineering curriculum, I think we had like one class that was for communication, and the other, you know, 95% was engineering and math and stuff like that. But communication is really helpful. You get to indicate to other departments and even stakeholders what your position is and why. And then you get to be transparent, you know, to the layman and explain to them exactly what the principle is and why you're doing what you're doing and when you're doing it. If you cannot communicate and properly clarify those things, it's going to be very hard for you to do your work, you know, because they don't understand. But communication is really big. I think I wish I had more classes on that and they really prepared you for it. A lot of people say, well, my work will speak for itself.
Yeah.
Well, why can't you do both, right?
Yeah.
Do the work and speak about it. You should do both, because people don't know. If you assume that they know, you've already lost, because they don't completely understand. So, but the technical knowledge and I think communications are key skill sets to have.
For sure. That's part of the impetus for the podcast, is that I feel like the public sector does a terrible job at patting themselves on the back publicly. Yes. Like, you guys do the cool, like you said, you get cars from the surface road to on the freeway efficiently. Like, that's a thing. If that's not done well, which I've been all around the world, I've been to 22 different countries. And if that's not done well, you're not going to have some happy city constituents, for sure. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you having that attitude of like, hey, we need to talk more about what we do. But answer this for me. How often does Philip get to sit down with the Caltrans and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Here's how you can help me. Or does that conversation ever or never happen?
Oh, it happens a lot, probably
Okay.
more than I want. Caltrans, they, they're great. They're a giant organization.
Yeah.
They have their hands on every facet of engineering. They're also grant administrators, so they give us money.
Oh,
They have a lot of money for grants that they could win on a competitive basis, and once we win it, then we have to deliver the work, and then we get
yeah.
reimbursements from them. But they have a lot of rules that we have to follow, a lot of documentation. But they're great in that sense that they give us the money. It's
Yeah.
almost free money. There's a small local match, but they help us deliver the community needs, whatever the community wants. We transfer that into a story and a grant application, and then we submit it to them. They give us money. And then Caltrans, they control the freeways, right? And they
Yeah.
control the off ramps. So Riverside, I lost count, but I think there's 13 interchanges in Riverside.
Okay.
There's 13 locations where we have to talk to them about traffic and peak hours and who gets the green time. Is it your cars? Is it my cars? We have to
Green
talk
time.
about that. And then right now we're doing a couple of grade separations. So that's a lot of fun. There are naturally built roadways that are intersecting with a railroad, and then you have to build a roadway underneath it. And then right next to that is the freeway. And so there's a lot of coordination for traffic control during construction, and there's temporary impacts to a lot of the movements. So there's a lot of discussion that goes on with Caltrans for those construction projects. And then the same thing, they have their own construction projects where they shut down the freeway like at nights on the weekends, and they got to tell us, hey, we got to route 200,000 cars down your surface street for one weekend. Can you help us out? Looking at them like, what are you gonna do?
Does that call coming with enough lead time for you to at least get a cone out, or is it like
we
the
have
day
to,
before?
yeah.
Okay.
There's probably like months in advance, months of lead time, months of public notification, advanced signage, changeable message signs, and then it'll tell everyone avoid this street at all costs. Use an alternate route if you can, because there's going to be freeway traffic routed onto your street. So yeah. We talk with them constantly. There's a lot of coordination with them. So
for sure. And speaking of the other side of communication, you're from the area. You're a SoCal boy. You're still in SoCal. How often, or what's like the most frequent text message you get from family and friends of like, Philip, what's happening on this road? Or why are you guys doing this during work hours? Like, what's that family and friends? Everybody thinks they have the bat line or the in line. I know somebody at the city. What's those conversations like?
Oh yeah, no. Just the other day, one of my friends said that the city installed a traffic signal next to my mom's house. Oh, am I still there?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So he said, and since that light's been installed, there's been collisions left and right. Can you give me some advice? What should I do? So, I didn't work at that city, but I know who works at that city. So I told them exactly what to do. I said, you contact your public works department.
Yeah.
You might want to include a council member in your email to get that political push in there.
Really? Okay.
Then, you can ask for more signage, tell them to look at more lighting, maybe even change the timing on the signal. But all of those things, or maybe change the striping on the roadway, those are all safety features they could look at so that there'll be less collisions near your mom's house.
Yeah.
So those are the type of calls I get. And then one time, one of my friends actually lived in the city of Riverside. She calls me. She said, I can't believe I got a parking ticket. How do I contest a parking ticket? So I just happened to be in the city, and I know the parking services manager, and I go, yeah, just come into City Hall, go talk to this guy, and he'll see if you can contest it, and maybe he could waive it even just as a one-time courtesy. trying to cut through the red tape and go straight to the source. I think that's really helpful. Just knowing the background, how a city works, that's really helpful. Most of the time when the public reaches out, they don't know who to contact, and then they get forwarded to the wrong department or the wrong person. So just trying to minimize that red tape and then just go straight to who they need to talk to get it done. And usually we'll be able to deliver. So.
For sure. You talked about grants. It's interesting. I didn't know that concept with Caltrans, that it's competitive. You go for grants and they grant you the money. Then you have to prove the work, and supply all the things that come with it. What are some other instances where you prepared grant applications, and then, like, I guess, how much have you won over time? And then, what's been some pluses for the community in regards to the grants that you went for?
Oh, my life's work is winning grant applications.
Really?
You brought that up. I say over my career, I've probably won about $30 million worth of grants for two different cities. When I was in Mission Viejo, I won these Project P traffic signal synchronization grants from Orange County Transportation Authority, or OCTA. They were able to provide signal timing, synchronization services, improve the traffic signals with newer equipment, newer push buttons, those push buttons that talk when you cross the street. I love those. So we were able to install those. We installed, battery backup systems. So when the power goes out, the signal continues to function. So that's one grant that I won. And then I also won a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant through Caltrans. Those are to install traffic signals or high visibility crosswalks, or, those flashing LED stop signs. We won those, or those, they're called speed feedback signs. It's a dynamic sign. It shows your speed when you're driving, and then right above it is the speed limit. So you're going like 15 over the speed limit. You're supposed to slow down, or there's a message there. But recently I won 2 Safe Streets for All grant applications, and those are nationwide, and they're competitive. I won some infrastructure grants for sidewalks and bike lanes. So that really changes the nature of the roadway. There's a lot of streets in the city that don't have actual sidewalk. It's just dirt. And so, kids get out of school and they're walking on dirt, and there's cars right next to them. It's really not a good condition to have. So when you have that curb and gutter, and then a raised sidewalk with crosswalks and curb ramps, it really makes it safer. It really designates a pedestrian space for pedestrians to be able to walk safely, from school to home. And then that same grant also won, I believe it was 16 miles of bike lanes. So that ranges from a small bike trail that's off the street, also painting bike lanes and bike signage on the intersections as well as the roadways. So that increases, active transportation. It makes it safer for vulnerable road users. And overall, trying to make the city safer. I did have this one grant. I recently completed it. It's called a Citywide Speed Limit Reduction Program. So California established a couple of new laws that allow us to lower the speed limits, even though they have the same speed surveys. And so we took advantage of that fully, and we established safety corridors, which is a requirement. And then we were able to lower speed limits, 5 to 10 miles an hour from its original speed. Speed management is one of the number one factors for traffic collisions. So I do a lot of roadway safety work, trying to reduce the number of collisions in the city, trying to save lives. There's a lot of fatal traffic collisions, so I'm trying to eliminate those. But those are the grant applications that I've been using to fund these grants and programs and policies. Without these grants, we wouldn't be able to do it. So, when the community tells me something, they need something, I don't necessarily have the money right away, but I have a long list of unfunded needs for the city, and I share that list in the grant application. And then the grant administrators, I think they see that, and I even include the actual email from the resident. And then I show it to them. This is what they're asking for. This is what they need. There was a collision history there. And I end up winning those grants. And I'm really fortunate to be able to do that. And then I deliver that to the community. I go back to them and I say, hey, you were part of this process. And I got some money because of what you asked for. And now we're going to build it, and ultimately it takes a little bit of time. You got to design it and then, construct it, but we'll eventually get there, and that's what's really one of the things that drives the public sector and public works. We turn that concept into concrete, and makes it into reality, and you deliver for the community. So
now that grant writing aspect, that's a whole nother skill set, man. Like, because you got a day job and now you're going for grants. So like, does Philip ever sleep at night? That's a whole other tactic.
I have a lot of staff. That's what I'll say. I'm not doing this alone. I have a village, and I have great mentors. And my secret sauce. I'm going to tell you my secret sauce. The director of public works was a former city traffic engineer. So he has a soft spot for city traffic engineers because he knows exactly what we went through. And then above him, the assistant city manager was also a former city traffic engineer. So when I need to get an approval, can I, you have to ask them, can I pursue a $10 million grant, but then there's a local match of $2 million. So where does the city going to find that $2 million to match it, right? Yeah, and I have to go above and beyond my position to get that approval. And when I ask former city traffic engineers if I can get that money, they'll say, yeah, you can do it.
Come on, guys, you guys are biased, man. You all roll together. All good. All right, I need a story from Philip when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Oh, that's a good one. I have a couple of examples. I had a resident that was asking for permit parking. And permit parking is a really challenging because you have to tell one community they can't park on a public street. And then tell the other community you can park there as long as you use your permits. So usually what happens, there's a single family tract, and adjacent to them is a multi-family development, and some of the cars from the multi-family development overflows into the single family tract. So then that single family tract requests for permit parking. They say, I can't park in front of my home. Every time I come home after work, there's cars in front of my house. I'm trying to drop off my groceries or just find the parking. I can't do it. And so the permit parking program, you can only have 2 permits per household. And this homeowner said, well, I have 2 grown kids and they drive. So they wanted 4 permits. Based on the program, I told them I couldn't do it. The next day, I see this email that says, Philip Nitollama should be fired because he can't help me and my kids. And he sent that to the city manager.
Wow.
And I was my first year of my job. I was like, oh, what am I going to do here? So, we ended up giving that particular resident 2 additional permits. And, I had to change the program and the policy for exceptions such as those. So moving forward, learning that, I always had to leave myself an out. You can't just flat out say no because it's written. You have to try to find a way to say yes. So that's I guess that's my new motto. Find a way to say yes. You never know when you're going to need them for their help. Maybe later on down the line, we have a voter measure that we need to be approved. We're going to look back to those same residents to vote for that voter measure to be approved for funding, right? So every policy I make has to be transparent. And then there's always that exception. Don't say no right away. You could say, based on the policy, it's not currently included. Let me see if I can revise the policy and accommodate your request. So that's what I would say for that. The second example I have this substandard street, and this is an active request. The street's too narrow to have two-way circulation, and
Oh,
so when there's not a lot of cars on this road. It's one lane in each direction, low speed, low volume. But when cars are going by it, they have to kind of play chicken, and
yeah.
one of them is going to move out of the way, the other one goes out of the way, so they can pass each other.
Hopefully, yeah.
For years we're trying to say, let's convert it to one way, and we'll present that just one way street so that they don't hit each other. Well, it sounds simple in concept, but everyone has a differing opinion. We have many community meetings, and they'll say, I want it to go eastbound because that's where I go to the freeway. No, I want it to go westbound because I don't want the freeway traffic to come to my house. And everyone is split,
Wow.
I want it eastbound, I want it westbound. And so we're trying to document everything, and we ended up having the opportunity to widen the roadway a little bit. So we're trying to accommodate both, but it just meets the bare minimum for each one.
Yeah.
That's how we ended up trying to find peace within the community. Something that went wrong, they both have conflicting objectives, but then through collaboration, community outreach, and some really innovative designs, we met all the minimums and made everybody happy. So that's something that I learned along the way. So.
For sure, and we don't want to see another email. Another email needs to be fired. That's tough, man. What you walk into work, you open up your email, and you got city manager saying, "Hey, what's up with this?" Yeah.
It was in capitals, and it was the headline of the email too. I was like, "Oh man, she's out to get me,"
Yeah, good old Monday at work for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you do to continue to level up, to continue to operate more and more efficiently? What's the weekly, monthly, annually Phil, Nitollama's, info diet to keep operating more efficiently?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. This is something I had to learn by watching really good leaders and really innovative upper management. They told me that you put 100% into your work, right? But you do that extra 10% that goes above and beyond what you do. If you're preparing for your next position up. So you should start acting like you already have that position.
Yeah.
If they give you an opportunity to work on a project that might be, out of your comfort zone, go for it. You might learn something. The second time around, it'll be more comfortable. And then when it's time to promote someone who can lead this team, right? Well, I've been doing that already. I've already been leading a team, So those are the things I would say is, like for me, I didn't know I needed a traffic engineering license until I got to, the city. And then I said, oh, there's a lot of traffic engineering involved. Maybe I should get a license. And it allowed me to do certain things that I wasn't able to do before. And then same thing when I get to the city of Riverside, there was a lot of civil work where I'm stamping plans. I need my civil engineering license. So, mid-career, I'm studying after hours to pass this test. It wasn't easy, but, always trying to improve yourself. You have to have that growth mindset. Right now, I have the opportunity to attend this cohort for safe systems approach, where they're trying to make the roads safer speeds, safer roadways, safer people, post-crash care. There's a cohort that I was able to attend. I have to take a one-day in-person workshop in Berkeley, so I have to leave Riverside. It was the middle of the day Wednesday, but at the end of this training, I'll be more informed about roadway safety features, which is directly applicable to my what I do at work.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about earlier how I ended up pursuing a master's in public administration. I didn't pursue that until I got to the public sector. There was a lot of people that had an MPA. That's what the initials are for. So I thought maybe I should get one too. Maybe that'll help me get promoted, or it'll allow me to be viewed as a person that can lead a team and also represent the community. So having that 10% every day pursuing that growth mindset for you, I think that's what's really needed. You can never say, I know everything that I need to do about my job.
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
something to learn. The one thing I saw this phrase, it was hard hats to hashtags. And I was like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a webinar or a workshop about transitioning the older generation with the new generation that's coming into the workforce.
Yeah.
So hard hats is, the people that are always in the field. They spend their whole life doing field stuff, and then the hashtags that you got these social media nowadays promotes everything, right? Yeah, you have hashtag public works, hashtag traffic engineering. You got to learn how to use those tools, and they're very useful. There's like online surveys now. You can get feedback from the community. And there's a lot of, it's called big data sets where they predict traffic, where traffic is going to go, and it hasn't happened yet. So all this technology is coming in, and then the older generation may not know how to use that. So you have to have that transition to learn from both. What was it like before all this technology? So you understand that, and then what's it like with all this new technology? And we have to really utilize everything we have to be able to make an informed decision. So I think that particular workshop was really helpful in learning how to use both.
Yeah. Let's say you're at a dinner party, and you're conversing with multiple people, and the question always comes up. So, Philip, what do? You say, I'm the city traffic engineer for the city of Riverside. What do you think they think? What are some of the biggest misconceptions about what you do?
Oh yeah, so when you hear that word engineer, they think we just do math. We use a calculator. We have our head down. We're drawing CAD plans, and we
the pocket protector.
Yeah, and you have glasses. I think that's what everybody thinks. That's what we do, but it's a lot more than that. A lot of communication, a lot of collaboration with the public. We're public facing. So we talk about that a lot. There's a lot of budgeting behind closed doors. We have to estimate how much things will cost. Do we have the budget for it? If you don't, let's pursue a grant application to fund it. Those are some things that aren't normally talked about. And then we also do policy development. So when I came to the city of Riverside, they didn't really have a speed hump program. So we did everything else but speed humps because it was costly. So I created a policy to establish criteria for speed humps. And we've included that in our toolbox. So now we can deliver speed humps. But I had to say no to a lot of streets that weren't eligible. And then there were some streets that really needed it. So I had to add that on there. So policy development, I think, is not something that's talked about. Other things, when you hear traffic, people think that our focus is vehicles only. How do you move? How do you relieve congestion?
I can see that. Yeah.
But we do a lot more than that. We also manage bikes. And we also, where do we install bike racks? Where do we put the bike signage, right? How do they cross that intersection? And then we also have to focus on pedestrians, sidewalks, crosswalks, curb ramps. And then we also work with transit. We work with the bus operators. And then now there's the new term micromobility, and those are for the e-scooters and the skateboarders. The schools, they have skateboard racks now. Some kids skateboard to school. They put their skateboard away, and they have scooter racks. That's really cool. For students. So that's the new transportation nowadays. It's not just vehicles.
What's give me Philip's, and again, don't entrap yourself, but what's Philip's? Because I have my own opinion on all these e-bikes, these electric motor scooters, these scooters that go 15, 20 miles an hour. What's kind of the 3 a.m. conversations with yourself that Philip goes through about these types of vehicles on our roadways or on our sidewalks?
Yeah, we have a big problem with e-bikes. They're very popular. They've exploded in popularity, and I understand the benefits. I love it. If you're really careful and you're responsible, you're using your e-bike, it gives you a lot more opportunities. I've seen some seniors that are using e-bikes because they're not physically able to move as much. Or after like a mile, they get tired. They turn on the pedal assist, and they can travel further than they have. They're biking on a trail next to the beach. It's a beautiful scenery, and I love that. But there's also the dangers if you don't know how to use your e-bike, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot, especially with a younger generation. They get a really powerful e-bike. It can go 28 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, and there's no training course requirement.
No. And they
it's
act like cars when they want to act like cars, and they act like pedestrians when it's like, dude, we had a fatality in our city right down the road because a kid, was because he was going fast enough as the cars. He was in the road, and the end of that story. But
I think there has to be more regulation. I think there should be some type of certification, not a license, but at least a training course, a workshop. There isn't a requirement today. It's like if you went and go and bought a regular bike, not a non-motorized bike, you just go to the store, you buy it, and you walk away. That's the same thing for an e-bike. You just go there, you just buy it, you walk away. But that bike can go so fast, and you can't control it as much, and sometimes vehicles aren't expecting bikes to go that fast. They
you can't hear them.
You can't hear them. You look, and I can just go, and then when they go, the bikes sometimes they're also traveling the wrong way. They're on the bike lane, but they're traveling slow. You have to act like a vehicle and go the correct path, the correct direction. So those are really dangerous. I think here in Southern California, Orange County, we had a grand jury report about 4 or 5 years ago, and it listed all these collisions from e-bikes, recent collisions, and it mandated a lot of the local agencies to establish bike signage on trails, bike workshops, and then even putting a lot of the bike workshops on notice that, hey, there's a lot of collisions out there. You got to be responsible who you're selling it to. There's flyers, educational components. So it was really eye-opening, that grand jury report in Orange County. It showed a lot of the dangers of e-bikes. So that kept me up at night. Yes.
For sure. All right. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Riverside. What ask of your community in regards to traffic would you put on this billboard?
I have to think about this one, but I think I would tell them to slow down. Every road user matters, right? Everyone's in a rush. We have to get to where we have to go. I would say leave earlier. Put your phone down when you're driving. Don't look at your phone. Go the speed limit. I think in a future ideal world, we would have autonomous vehicles that would drive the speed limit. On every roadway, and then as the person in the vehicle, we would have like a table. We have like a magazine. We just sit there and read, and it'll just take us to where we need to go. It's kind of like Uber, right, where the driver is just taking us. We're relaxed, but it'll be an autonomous vehicle that's doing that. That would be ideal in the future. But I think I would ask the community to really just take care of your speed, slow down. Every street user matters because there's an epidemic of human life being lost from traffic collisions, and it's really human behavior that's causing that. We can only engineer a road so much. We can put up all the signage, all the striping, all the medians, but if the road user is not responsible, there's going to be a fatality out there. So.
All right. I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. And then I want you to give a word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow traffic engineers across the country.
I've run into a lot of really talented individuals. Some of my supervisors here in the city of Riverside, also in the city of Mission Viejo, as well as, my prior private sector employees from Urban Crossroads. I want to thank all of them for teaching me and giving me an opportunity. Some of them hired me even though I didn't meet their qualifications as much as they wanted to. I met the minimum, but I wasn't the standout candidate, but I made them laugh during interviews. So I thank them for that opportunity. There's a lot of, there's some city managers that are really good speakers. Those are really good motivators. And I watch a lot of inspirational public speaking.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, he's great.
Yeah.
He has a lot of public speaking inspirational videos that I follow. I'm also I love basketball. So, Kobe Bryant, he has that mamba mentality. He has a lot of those, phrases and, just be aggressive. If you fall down 7 times, you get up 8 times, don't stop you from moving forward. So those are all collectively is what I use for, my motivation and my inspiration. So.
For sure. All right. Let's say I'm coming to town. I'm coming to the city of Riverside, and I text you ahead of time. I say, Philip, where can I go to get the best burger in Riverside? Where are you going to send me?
Ooh, the best burger in Riverside. So I like the franchise burger, which is the In-N-Out. In-N-Out is, you can go anywhere. It doesn't have to be in Riverside, but they're everywhere in the West Coast. In-N-Out, they have like a plain menu. There's only like 5 items on that menu, but they've lasted for years.
Yeah.
We got secret items on their menu. So In-N-Out's one of my favorites. For Riverside though, there's a restaurant that was called the Salted Pig in downtown Riverside. That's what you want, more of a gourmet burger, I would say.
Yeah.
It's really good. So those 2 particular ones are good opportunities for burgers. There's also Heroes Restaurant in downtown Riverside. That one has more of a bar and a sports atmosphere. So they have a lot of TVs too. So while you're enjoying your burger, you can watch the game. Maybe have a beer or 2. But those 3 restaurants are my top pick. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you for saying that. Phil, thanks for hopping on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge with us. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Philip, any final words before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity and sharing this platform. I'm really glad we have a focus on public works. We don't get all the credit and all the social media as other professions. I want to thank you, Joseph, for reaching out to me and giving me this opportunity. Very, very grateful for this opportunity.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you for hopping on. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in.